Hello everyone, good evening. So, welcome to this session on cultural revivalism in Telangana, and I believe you guys must have carefully gone through the syllabus. This is included in Telangana State Formation Paper 6 in the part 3. They have included this. It's a very interesting topic. So, in this session, I would want to expose you guys on the approach to topics like this. See, the way I would want to go with in this session, it is like this. So what possible dimensions we can bring out from this topic so that we can make our preparation accordingly based on these dimensions. Let's say the topic is cultural revivalism. I know some of you may not be aware of what actually is cultural revivalism. First, let me bring in those dimensions for you so you will get to know what we want to study. Later, based on that, as we go into the subject or as we go into the specifics, we will better understand the demand of the topic. Let's say the possible dimensions or the possible areas here. So what is the concept of cultural revivalism? Isn't it? We have to know what is the concept of cultural revivalism, and we also should know if there are any associated concepts. Are there any associated concepts to the concept of cultural revivalism is one area we are supposed to know. Then we also should know, see, if you observe carefully, the topic is revival of Telangana culture. Revival means, reviving means getting back to normalcy or coming back to originality is called as revival, right? So, what happened to the Telangana culture? What happened to the Telangana culture? So, there is a need for revival of the Telangana culture. So, this will lead us to another important dimension, factors that contributed to the degradation of Telangana culture. So, what factors that led to degradation or degeneration of Telangana culture would be one dimension which we should keenly focus. Then we also have to focus on what measures were taken, what measures were actually taken for the revival of the Telangana culture. So you may want to call it cultural renaissance of Telangana, right? So what measures were taken for revival of the Telangana culture? Then what else can be done? What else can be done so that the Telangana culture would come back to its, that full-blown Telangana culture will come into picture. So these are the broad areas we must learn or we must make an attempt to understand in this concept. So now I think you would have got a direction, like how our approach in the classroom is going to be for topics and how you also should learn to master each concept in the syllabus. So coming to the first idea, what actually is this cultural revivalism? See, as I have already mentioned in the introductory note itself, something has to be revived. Revived means coming back to normalcy or getting back to original form. As simple as that. And one aspect here in this context I would like to add is, no examiner in any country would ever, in any examination in the country, they would never expect you to write textbook definitions. So what they expect from you is your understanding of the topic. So do not be under the pressure that you have to mug up the textbook definition and reproduce that in the examination. No, that is not at all needed. You can write it in your own comfortable terms. So it is nothing but revival or bringing back to the original form of the culture is called as cultural revivalism, right? Then, going a little further into this, here we will try to make it specific. First, we will try to understand generally what factors may or what factors would contribute to degradation or degeneration of any culture. Let's say I'll start with this example. If a question is posed at you guys, what led to degradation of Indian culture? Isn't it? Right from our childhood, in our school textbooks, we were told that, the British rule led to degeneration of Indian culture. Or in the recent times, we are reading in the newspapers the globalization and, the consequent impact of the capitalism and how multinational corporations are trying to impose their products and how Western countries are imposing their ideologies, their ideas, their institutions upon us. Isn't it? This is the general discussion we do when it comes to the factors that would contribute to the degeneration or degradation of Indian culture. One plank I touched upon is the colonial rule or the British rule. Second idea which I have touched upon is how the globalization and of course the westernization or the Western impact led to the degradation or degeneration of Indian culture. On a similar line, even for the Telangana culture also, definitely without any doubt, British rule also would have contributed or has contributed to the decline of the Telangana culture. Similarly, not just British rule, the impact of globalization also would definitely be there on the Telangana culture. But if you guys observe carefully, the positioning of this topic in the syllabus is in the part 3 of the Telangana state formation, wherein examiner would expect you guys to know a little bit in more depth and detail what factors led to the degeneration of Telangana culture after the formation of the combined Andhra. I'll repeat this again, listen carefully. What factors led to the degeneration of Telangana culture after the formation of the combined Andhra Pradesh, wherein you must be aware, in the aftermath of the independence, Telugu speaking regions were made into one single political entity called as Andhra Pradesh, isn't it? Hope you are aware of this basic fact. Going any further, in this context, one factual aspect which we all must be aware is, see, though there is this commonality of the language between the two Telugu speaking regions, the reality is that the common period under which they are under a same political rule, the Telangana or Andhra Pradesh, the common political rule in their entire history, if we try to trace it, it would be hardly some 350 to 400 years mark. So barring this 350 to 400 years, for most part of the history, Telangana region and Andhra Pradesh region were ruled by different political entities or ruled by different political rulers. Then you must be thinking, what is the linkage being ruled by different political leaders and its impact on the culture? It's a very important idea. Listen carefully. So, when two regions are ruled by different political rulers, see, you have to understand this basic fact that people in power or people who enjoy the economic status and the political power are the ones who will determine the culture. I'll repeat this statement again. People who are in the political power and people who enjoy economic status, these are the ones who will also determine the cultural sphere. So this should make it clear for you that there are many things in the Telangana culture which are the product of the rule made in Telangana by the rulers who are different from that of the rulers of the Andhra Pradesh region. So Telangana has several unique and distinctive features in its culture because of the political rule under which it was for a significant period in the history. And trying to understand the conceptual linkage of it, there is a small concept called as cultural hegemony. cultural hegemony. It's given by a sociologist called as Antonio Gramsci. So this concept of cultural hegemony says this: somebody who is economically dominant will also extend his domination into the political sphere and the cultural sphere. I'll repeat this. Somebody who is dominant in the economic sphere would continue the domination into the political sphere and the economic sphere. So with this background information, now we will go into little more specificity how in the aftermath or how after the formation of combined Andhra Pradesh in the post-independent period, it has contributed or it has led to the systematic degeneration or degradation of Telangana culture. And one thing you must have noticed, I am not getting into many specifics or finer details in this lecture because as it's a YouTube live session, I want to make it more conceptual, I want to make it more engaging, so deliberately I am avoiding those finer details. But in the classroom discussion, we will bring those names, we will bring those dates, we will bring those specifics, because it's a classroom lecture wherein there you expect from me like more content which is necessary to clear the examination. I just want to mention it. And coming back to this, see, the impact was very much on the Telangana language. The impact is very much on the Telangana history and of course the cultural aspects of Telangana. Impact of what? Impact of rule in the post-independent period, a rule which is dominated by the leaders of coastal Andhra region and Rayalaseema region. Means the erstwhile coastal Andhra, Rayalaseema, which used to be part of Andhra Pradesh, and we very well know that most of the chief ministers have come either from Rayalaseema or from coastal Andhra Pradesh, and they are the ones who enjoyed the political power, and most of the industries in Hyderabad, they are dominated by the capitalists, especially the Kamma capitalist and the Reddy capitalist of the Andhra Pradesh region. These are certain facts which we all know. So in this process, what was done is, not adequate emphasis was given to Telangana dialect. And Telangana dialect was always portrayed as something insignificant or something which does not have literary backing. And in the textbooks, especially in the school textbooks or in the administrative language, Telangana language was, because they do not even want to identify Telangana as a separate language. They believed that Telangana is just a dialect. Some even went to the extent of saying Telangana is just a corrupt version or a layman's version of Telugu. So that were the extreme levels of comments made at one point of time. But let's not get into the controversies or politicking. We will be more interested in analyzing things as objectively as possible. But this is how Telangana dialect was always marginalized, neither in the school textbooks nor in the different kinds of administrative communications, and most importantly, the broadcast media or other medium like film industries, all of them, they always try to portray the language of few districts like Krishna, Guntur, or sometimes the Godavari districts as the original Telugu language, whereas all the words or all the jargon of the places other than from these four districts have been depicted as not belonging to the core Telugu culture. So the result is obvious. Because of this, it led to systematic, gradually Telangana was marginalized. I mean, the Telangana dialect was marginalized. Isn't it? You guys would have observed in the movies also, often the heroes would speak the language of Krishna, Guntur, or West Godavari, East Godavari, but it is the villains who would speak the language of Telangana or villains who would speak the language of Rayalaseema. You would have observed this trend, ma. So the impact on the Telangana language is obvious, right? Then similarly, the Telangana history Telangana history was never given its due recognition and respect. Telangana history was never given its due recognition and respect, especially the contribution of Telangana freedom fighters to the independent national movement was never portrayed in our textbooks, and also Telangana leaders who fought against Nizam rule are Telangana leaders who fought against the feudal landlordism, which is very much prevalent in the Telangana region. They were never given a significant place in the textbooks. And this is how, and also the Telangana history was taken for granted, and many a times, especially the symbols, we call it, right? Symbols means it can be statues, many aspects. So Telangana symbols were largely ignored. Our Telangana symbols were largely sidelined. So in this manner, Telangana history and the significance of Telangana history was often underplayed, and contribution of Telangana history to the Telugu culture was often portrayed as something not so significant or something less relevant in contribution to the Telugu culture. So this is how Telangana history and its significance and it was downplayed by the leaders of erstwhile leaders of Andhra and Telangana region. And another important aspect is the impact on Telangana cultural aspects. So you may be thinking, what kind of cultural aspects? See, cultural aspects like one simple example, say Batukamma festival. See, if you guys see Batukamma festival, they use a lot of flowers, right? The kind of flowers that Tangedu Pulu, that Banti Pulu, Chamantis, all these flowers, see, they are local to the Telangana landscape. Telangana landscape is one which is characterized by, there is a lot of wild, it's like characterized by a lot of wild terrain. You have community lands where people used to take their livestock for grazing, and agriculture was never a mainstay, or agriculture was never something very significant in the lives of Telangana people. So for them, the kind of minor forest produce they get from the wild terrain, whether it is this Sita Phalam Pandu, we call it custard apple, or they value this. It's not that they are eating food which is in any way inferior in quality to the kind of food which people in the Andhra Pradesh, coastal Andhra region or Rayalaseema is consuming. Even Telangana people, they used to have access to good food, but the access or the source of the food is from the forest. So minor forest produce. They used to value their forest, and they used to get good amount of produce from the forest. And for that matter, you also have to acknowledge that Telangana has good amount of tank irrigation system. Though it may not have an elaborate canal system, for that matter, Telangana's, if we try to consider that the tank irrigation is integral to the Telangana culture, we can also interpret it in that way that after the formation of Andhra Pradesh, combined Andhra Pradesh in this 1950s, they have even neglected Telangana tanks, lakes, which are also very much integral to the Telangana culture. When lakes themselves are drying, so all the festivals or all the rituals which are associated with lakes also have gone. Lakes themselves have gone, so obviously the rituals, festivals would also go, isn't it? So like this, it has become, say, when they are not promoting Bonalu, when they are not promoting Batukamma festival, which have a close connect to the landscape of the Telangana, and even the tribal festivals like Sammakka Saralamma Jatara, like the Medaram Jatara, or there is one more popular tribal festival in Khammam region. So all these are deliberately undermined or downplayed. At a point of time, people got disillusioned. See, because why would people of Telangana have to give so much importance to a harvest festival called Sankranti? Historically and culturally, for them Sankranti is not significant, because for them the crop which they get for harvest at that particular point of the year, January, is not important. For them, for the terrain of Telangana, these wildflowers, these fruits which they can get from this terrain, these are more important. So that is the reason they have evolved this unique festivals like Batukamma or Bonalu, which suits the Telangana culture. But those festivals were not given significance, but in those places these festivals were promoted. They used to enjoy all the patronage and they used to get all the funds. Similarly, the same thing happened when it comes to promotion of literature. The Telangana literature was not given its due significance, and Telangana literary stalwarts, especially the ones like Kaloji and all, and their contribution was never recognized. Till recently, there is no proper statue for him also in Hyderabad region. So the literary stalwarts of Telangana were sidelined. They are not given any significance. The folk traditions of Telangana like Oggu Katha, Perini Shivatandavam, they are also not given any significant importance. But and all these factors we can sum up and tell that this has led to degeneration of Telangana culture. And definitely people would not remain calm when they are losing their culture, isn't it? Because culture is something very close, culture is something very dear to everyone's heart. And especially language, which is a component of culture. Language is a potentially explosive issue. No people on any part of the planet, they have remained silent when people meddled with their language or their dialect. They may remain calm for some amount of time, but that pent up anger, when it explodes, when it bursts, it might take any form. It might take the most violent form. So, but even the language or the dialect of Telangana was sidelined, and this is how the Telangana culture has seen the decline. So in this context, at one point of time, that specifics I am not touching in the class, I want to do it in the regular classroom sessions. The attempts were made for the revival of Telangana culture. One good example in this context, which we will also be discussing in the classroom session, is the Telangana Jagruti. Telangana Jagruti, it's a cultural institution, if we can call it that way, an institution which was launched to promote Telangana culture. To promote Telangana culture, they started encouraging people. They wanted to build the self-respect of the people. They want to tell people that now Telangana culture is important, and during the Telangana agitation or Telangana movement also, this Telangana Jagruti has played a significant role. It has moved from village to village, creating that awakening among the people and enlightenment among people and motivating people to understand the importance of Telangana culture. So definitely we have to accept that the Telangana culture is now resurging, and now there is a recognition of the Telangana festivals. Now there is state patronage for Batukamma or Bonalu or Sadar festival or Medaram Jatara, and government is celebrating, and government itself has revived the temples like Yadadri and Bhadradri. All these things government has given funds, isn't it? And also now a good and positive turn even happened in the film industry. Now homegrown native film stars have come from Telangana, isn't it? People like Vijay Devarkonda, all this, they have now become film stars and have now become popular. And in the movies also, now it has become a cool thing. Even the protagonists are also talking in Telangana language or Telangana dialect, isn't it? So all these positive trends unfolded, and in many ways Telangana culture and government also soon after the formation of Telangana declared Perini Shivatandavam as the state festival, and Tangedu Pulu also are now getting, again they have come back to their prominence, and government is encouraging, tribal minor forest produce like collection of custard apples, and government has created markets in Hyderabad to sell and make money, and government is organizing cultural festivals frequently. You would have read in newspapers also how every Sunday government is blocking entire tank bund and organizing cultural events in the Hussain Sagar region. And today also you would have seen, because Dalit culture is very much integral to Telangana culture, So, but often that Dalit culture, which is very much integral to Telangana culture, was often not given significance. So the present ruling dispensation in Telangana, they are also encouraging this resurgence of Dalit culture, and also the way they are encouraging thriving of the Islamic culture. They are funding, revival of the many monuments. Especially during Nizam rule, there are many monuments heritage structures. They are generously giving funds. You would have seen how Mojamjahi market in Hyderabad was revived, and how the Char Kaman near the Charminar region also was revived. It was restored. Now it is brought back to originality. And in collaboration with INTAC of Ministry of Culture, now they are also spending huge money on improving Qutub Shahi tombs, isn't it? And Taramati Baradari also has been now completely revived, and now it's vibrant. The Golconda Fort, and it's the lot of reforms they have brought around Golconda Fort, and the experience, the kind of cultural experience which people get from Golconda Fort also, was revived. So like this, many attempts or many things present government is trying to do to bring back Telangana culture to its original vibrancy. But yes, there is a lot of scope, much more scope to do, especially in the present times of globalization and the advent of information technology and easy availability of internet. Not just in Telangana, youth all over the world, they are not bothered, or they have least interest about the cultural aspects. So it's not just the governments. So it's also the responsibility of the citizens of Telangana region to know their roots, because see, Telangana is a product of sacrifices of many martyrs, right? Isn't it? Many people have sacrificed their life to get this Telangana, isn't it? The Telangana region is an outcome of their sacrifices. So the Telangana culture, youth of this part of the country have to understand the significance, and it is also their responsibility to uphold, first of all, to understand, to appreciate, and of course to definitely uphold the importance of Telangana culture, right? So I started this lecture by generating certain questions, right? So this would be our approach for most of the topics. We would want to deconstruct every single topic. Here we understood what is the concept of cultural revivalism, and one associated concept we have discussed in this context, that is cultural hegemony of Antonio Gramsci. Then we try to discuss what factors led to the degradation of culture. We have started with factors that led to degradation of Indian culture. I have mentioned this British rule and globalization. Similarly, I extended the logic, same thing to the Telangana. I said those things also would have contributed to the degradation of Telangana culture. Later we got into specifics by trying to understand how in the aftermath of after the formation of the state, combined Andhra Pradesh, coastal Andhra, Rayalaseema and Telangana, later because of the political domination of people belonging to one region, and the capitalism dominated by people belonging to few dominant castes from coastal Andhra and Rayalaseema, and how they tried to impose their culture as the original Telugu culture on all parts of the Telugu states, and how this has led to degradation of the Telangana culture we have discussed. Later we also tried to discuss about Telangana Jagriti, and also how attempts were made after the formation of the state for the revival of the Telangana culture. Then, though I did not get into that, in the classroom I'll try to do it. What other measures can be taken? What other measures can be taken so that the Telangana culture will get back to its full vibrancy and vigor? So this is about this topic, cultural revivalism in Telangana, and as we have previously announced, we are going to start this Telangana state formation paper 6 discussion. I'll be taking the part 3 of it. Part 1 and part 2 would be dealt by Nishanth sir. As previously mentioned, Nishanth sir has written 6 UPSC mains, and he has given 3 UPSC interviews, and all the 6 mains he has written with history as his optional. So he has a lot of mastery in the history subject. And one question couple of days ago, one student asked me about the experience of the faculty. I'll tell you something. Though Telangana history is there for many years, but till now, how many notifications have come? I think only one notification has come till date, and second notification is about to come for Telangana. So most of the people who are teaching Telangana history, see, previously they used to teach Telugu history, and in that, as part of Telugu history, people used to teach Andhra history more. Telangana history was never taught much. So I don't think I respect experience of the senior faculties. It's perfectly agreeable, but it's a relatively new topic which was being popularized, right, because of this examination. So I don't think there are not many people actually who have so many experience, especially of teaching Telangana history. So, and this actually is not even history, right? This paper is less history and more of understanding the events. And the problem is in Hyderabad that mains level orientation is not happening, and most people are just interested in giving you facts, that numbers or events or the names of the leaders, but we won't do that. Our focus will be more on the concepts, conceptual understanding, deepening of approach towards the mains examination would be our approach. I believe that would be more comprehensive and more relevant to crack the demands of the examination, right? So, and we have already announced the batch date, and admissions also have started. So if you guys want to enroll, you can enroll to this module. So thank you so much for attending this session. All the very best.